Everybody, welcome back to Live in the Wellness Garden. I am your lead here, Andreas. I'm super excited about today's topic because this is kind of my wheelhouse. I am actually Greek Cypriot. My mother's father is from Greece, and my dad's parents are from Cyprus. And this is what we're doing for National Nutrition Month. We're talking about different crops from around the world. And so we're going to be talking about Mediterranean crops this week. And, this is something that is very close and dear to my heart because of my own heritage. So I'm really excited to discuss this topic with you all. But before we get into it, I just wanted to let everybody know that today is the last day to sign up for the Healthy Growers Training. You can find the link to do that on our Instagram. There's a post about it. It's a couple posts back. You'll just have to scroll back. And this is a free 4-week organic vegetable gardening training that is taught by me and will feature presentations from other members of the Let's Grow Healthy team. So we're going to be covering everything from soil preparation, garden design, soil health, transplanting, seed starting, crop selection, growing zones, pest control, integrated pest management, irrigation systems, saving seeds, pruning, and even food safety for when you're consuming your harvest. So it's a very, very broad training, covers a lot of ground, and I highly encourage you to sign up for that. We have limited spots still available for the in-person sessions for CSUN students, and we have plenty of spots available still for the online Zoom version. So stay tuned for that. It is beginning this Friday at 9 a.m., and it'll be this Friday, the next Friday. We're going to take a break for spring break. Then the 2 following Fridays, we are also going to hold sessions, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. So make sure to sign up for that. Go ahead and navigate over to our Instagram feed if you're interested, and find the post that says Healthy Growers Training, the flyer. Just want to let you all know. Anyways, before we get into today's topic, I do want to give a brief tour of the garden and just showcase what we've been doing. Since we had our last live stream, you can see that we've been working on making some improvements to the fruit tree area. Check it out. We installed this deadwood edging, and we have these nice pathways now leading in between the fruit trees. You can kind of see that we've constructed these irregularly shaped planter beds around the fruit trees, and that's kind of like the intention here is to plant the area around the fruit trees, make it more productive, include some crops in the ground that will appreciate the shade and shelter that the fruit trees provide, and really convert this area from a mini orchard to more of a food forest system, a layered food forest system that functions much in a way that's very similar to how a forest works. And we will be doing a future episode on food forests as we're getting this installed, and talk about how food forests work, how you can plant a food forest, and why food forests are truly the path to food sovereignty in many areas of the world. So very excited to do that topic. But for now, I just want to provide an update and show you guys the area, what we've been doing. And just check this out. Look at the stratification that's beginning to develop in this bed right here. It's really exciting to see that. The layering. This is what you want when you're designing companion planting systems or polycultures. You want everything to be layered. So here's our broccoli. This is actually coming out soon. We pretty much harvested as much broccoli as we're going to harvest. We might leave a couple of them in that are still productive for a little while longer. But yeah, the broccoli is just finishing up. We've got the celery. That's going to be coming in soon. The onions are still coming in. I think that they kind of are not getting enough sun still, because there are onions in other areas of the garden that are getting more sun and they're doing much better. But we'll see how they do. It's an experiment in this case, just trying to see like how much shade onions can actually handle. Really trying to push the boundaries here. So that looks good. Here's our native plant area looking absolutely fantastic. And we will be talking about some of these plants during today's live stream because we do live in a Mediterranean climate. And so these are technically like, Mediterranean plants. I don't want to call them that, because, like this is not the Mediterranean, obviously. We are on Tongva land. So I don't want to say these are Mediterranean plants exactly, but this is a Mediterranean type climate, very similar climate to the Mediterranean basin. So we'll be talking about some of these plants as well, and their edible and medicinal uses. So check it out. We harvested the sorrel, lots and lots of sorrel, several pounds of sorrel actually from this area, and we're getting several pounds a month out of this bed. Really exciting. The Tithonia is coming back very nicely in this bed. The pigeon peas are beginning to enter their reproductive phase, so we're going to think about possibly cutting those back a bit soon. Sugarcane's looking great. So yeah, all the tropicals are basically starting to wake up now. These cover crops look fantastic here. We're going to be doing some medicinal herbs in these beds very soon. And this one, of course, already has the fenugreek companion plant with the strawberries. fenugreek and Phacelia and nasturtium with the strawberries. I think there's a couple flax flowers in there too. We can just see like how everything is working in synergy in this bed. We didn't add any fertilizer. We just planted this fenugreek cover crop. So I'll take this off really quick. Bear with me, please. I want to show you guys this bed. Looking absolutely fantastic. This is the healthiest I've ever seen the strawberries here. I mean, look at these leaves. Absolutely beautiful. So the fenugreek is hard at work fixing nitrogen for us and enriching the soil. It's beginning to enter its flowering phase, so we're going to think about harvesting it soon. I want to figure out what the center wants to use it for, because I'm honestly not sure how to use fenugreek in this capacity. I'm not sure, like, maybe I can try making tea out of it. I don't know, but we'll see. But yeah, and then here's flax, of course, as well. And we use flax to build up our mycorrhizal fungi populations in the soil. There are some onions here, too. I did plop them in here, but I'm not sure how well they're doing. I'm sure they'll do better after the cover crop is out. And then, of course, we have the Phacelia. So we pretty much just added a little bit of our homemade cold compost to this bed. And there are Phacelia seeds in the compost. And this is a native wildflower that is one of the best insectary plants that you can possibly plant. It volunteers everywhere once you get it in your compost pile. So I'm just like, all right, I don't mind. Like, I don't mind, this being one of the quote unquote weeds here, because this is going to attract so many beneficial insects, and it's also really fantastic at producing green manure. So when it's done and it's time to take it out, great chop and drop. And also, it's a bit fuzzy, it's a bit spiky, so it may actually also serve as a rodent deterrent. I'm not sure yet, but maybe we can do a little experiment as the Phacelias are maturing. Leave this cage off of the bed and see if it helps keep the possums away. So that'll be interesting to see. Blueberries are flowering right there. Yeah, let's take a little walk around real fast and show you guys around. So this is the new bed, looking absolutely fantastic. No fertilizer, only green manure. And we are growing the cover crops in between the rows for more green manure. Again, we harvested the sunchokes from this bed. We're subjecting this bed to a very high disturbance activity by doing that. So we want to replenish the soil, rebuild the soil structure and the soil food web. So that's what we're doing sort of here with these cover crops. And we can see that the main food crops are doing well. So these are spinach and lettuce transplants. We can see the Florida broadleaf mustard and cilantro seedlings coming up. So all these transplants are going to be coming up first, and then that's going to leave room for the other guys in here. And then in between, we're planting the Jerusalem artichokes, the sunchokes once again. Here's another one of the pathways, and you can kind of see how I've laid this out. So basically, you'll be able to access the fruit trees from all sides. We're still getting the space in between and around the fruit trees to plant more plants, and we're going to be putting a ton of stuff in here. Some native plants, some tropical plants. We're going to be tucking everything in the right spot. Lots of comfrey, of course, to produce more green manure. We're going to let the nasturtiums keep going. And then a cover crop very similar to the one that we're doing underneath the fig trees. Many of the same species. But we're going to be including some more shade-tolerant species in this area since this is a part shade area. Lemon tree is flowering. The new growth after we subjected the lemon tree to the heavy pruning looks really great, looks really healthy. We're going to keep it managed and just make sure that we don't have too many issues again because we do have like mealybug issues and stuff like that. I don't see any evidence of anything serious like citrus greening disease, but we're going to keep an eye on this tree and just make sure that it's happy. Anyways, let's move over to the area of the garden. I wanted to begin talking about the main subject of this video. So basically how this is going to work is I'm just going to talk about some of our Mediterranean climate plants that we are growing in expository format, describe how to grow them, where to get them, what they're used for, etc. So this is kind of our Mediterranean herb bed right here. So let's start right here. And these right here, these Mediterranean herbs and native plants are definitely like some of our easiest things to grow. Like, there's this whole like mystical, like native plants seem to be mystified a bit, but they're very easy to grow. Like as easy as our Mediterranean herbs, if not easier. So here we have thyme. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful sort of like spreading, mounding growth form. And you use the shoots as a culinary herb. Very, very delicious. Just the general rule with Mediterranean herbs is well draining soil. Don't give them too much water. Once you get them in and get them established, they generally don't need much care at all. They're fantastic for planting along the edges of your garden, sort of areas that don't receive direct watering but receive subsurface water. This is where I've planted them at my house, sort of like around my vegetable beds that receive regular irrigation, and these guys will tap into some of that subsurface water for themselves. So then, of course, we got our oregano, and we gave the oregano a really, really hard pruning last year, and you can see just how healthy the new growth is coming back. It was actually my uncle living in Fresno who told me like he does this to his oregano every year. He has this huge mat of Italian oregano that he cuts back every year like this. And I'm starting to see the benefits of it because this is some of the healthiest, most vigorous growth I've ever seen on an oregano plant. So it looks fantastic. And like, as you can see, like, even though the thyme looks good, it is starting to get a bit senescent. So you may want to consider cutting this back too. I don't know. I'm actually thinking about turning over this bed to something else because the soil in this bed is fantastic, actually, after being covered by these perennial plants for years. So we might be able to do vegetables in here and possibly move the Mediterranean herbs over to where this sculpture is. And possibly do like an herb spiral type situation. That'll be a fun project. And yeah, so that's our oregano, that's our thyme. You can pick these up, of course, anywhere. Like these are very easy plants to come across, and very easy to grow, and multiple uses. So fantastic things to grow. I definitely would recommend it. Yeah, so then of course we have our regular garden sage. This is Salvia officinalis right here. Salvia officinalis. This one has kind of always been anemic. I'm not sure what the deal is with it, but you know, maybe it's not getting quite enough water. I mean, soil seems nice and moist here, so maybe that's not what it is. But yeah, I'm not sure what it is about this plant. I mean, this is good soil for sure. But you know, we've kind of brought this one back to life. It wasn't doing too great before. But you know, of course, sage is used in many dishes. It's a fantastic herb to grow. We have another variety over here, as you can see. This is the purple variegated sage. This one looked even worse, but ever since we've been giving it regular water, it's sort of come back and giving it some good prunings. We gave it a pruning about a month ago just to harvest it, and it looks really good. So yeah, I would say that in general, a lot of your Mediterranean herbs are going to benefit from regular pruning, and these are mostly perennial plants. So we're going to be talking about basil towards the end of the live stream, but you know, most of your Mediterranean herbs are perennials. Generally, when you have a Mediterranean climate plant community, it's going to be like very perennial focused, especially as it matures. So even in the native plant area, a lot of these annual wildflowers are going to start cycling out. Our perennial grasses and shrubs are going to start taking over. I mean, this black sage is already popping off, and we'll talk about these sages right now. So here we have black sage, and I prefer to use this instead of garden sage. Like, honestly, in my opinion, you don't need to grow garden sage here. You do not need to grow Salvia officinalis here at all. Grow black sage if you want a good culinary sage, or Cleveland sage. This has a much more intense, pungent, and flavorful. It's much more flavorful than regular garden sage, is what I'm trying to say. And it's absolutely delicious. Just like it's got such a complex aroma with like hints of sweetness and sourness. And it's just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Definitely my favorite sage for cooking right here would be black sage. So whenever you have Mediterranean climate herbs that you're trying to grow, try and opt for native substitutes like this right here. I'm not sure what a native alternative to oregano would be, but I do know that there is a native variety of tarragon that grows here. So if you are interested in growing tarragon, grow the native tarragon. It is Artemisia dronunculus. Definitely would recommend doing that one. And then, of course, we have white sage right here. And this is a very sacred plant for many indigenous groups. Also can be made into a tea, and I believe it can be used as a culinary herb as well. So very beautiful plant. It's going to get quite large. It's going to fill up this entire space right here. So will the black sage, but white sage tends to be a bit larger even. And it has, its aroma, I would say, is also very unique. Not quite as intense as that of black sage, but still very intense nonetheless, and still more complex and interesting than your regular garden sage. Also very easy to grow here. So then we have our elderberry. This is our blue elderberry. Kind of having a bit of trouble here getting established, having some pest issues, but no biggie. This guy will recover. These are really tough plants. This one is a fantastic medicinal plant. You can make the berries into jellies, jams, syrups, that sort of thing once they're fully ripe. Make sure that you don't include the seeds, because every other part of the plant except for the ripe berries is toxic. But this is another fantastic sort of like Mediterranean climate plant that I would grow, also native. Grows very abundantly around here, especially in locations that receive some moisture. If you ever go on a hike, you'll be able to find all three of these plants. I guarantee it. Do not harvest them from the wild. I do not recommend that, especially white sage, because white sage is currently under threat from poaching. I would say, like, you know, either get these plants from a nursery, talk to a local indigenous land steward who might have access to seeds and plants. or look into or contact like a local nonprofit such as the California Native Plant Society that might be offering free plants that you can plant. But like in terms of water requirements for our, I guess, native Mediterranean climate herbs, they really don't need water. Like they need even less water than our like Mediterranean plants. And because they're adapted to our precipitation patterns here. So you don't really need to water them at all. You just need to get them in. And in a previous live, we demonstrated how to plant these. Remember, you want to wet the planting hole 5 times before you transplant. Let it drain after each time, at least 5 times. Then you stick it in the ground, and then they're going to take off. You can see just how much this black sage has taken off. It's put on almost 2 feet of growth since the fall. These are very fast-growing plants, ladies and gentlemen. So definitely would recommend your native plants if you are interested in growing some fantastic culinary herbs, especially our native sages. Fantastic culinary herbs. And we have also, now according to botanists, is also a sage now. I'm sure you all recognize this plant. This is rosemary. We have a hedge of rosemary along the fence here. And rosemary is also very easy to grow, requires no maintenance. Again, like these Mediterranean herbs, they require no maintenance, basically. At least the ones that are native to like Mediterranean climate regions, because we live in a Mediterranean climate. So very, very, very easy to grow. And I don't know, I've just, when it comes to rosemary, I've just pretty much popped it in the ground. And like oregano and thyme, it does really enjoy that subsurface water from like an irrigated vegetable bed adjacent to it. Not so with our native sages. They do not appreciate that during the summer. So they need summer drought. Our native sages need summer drought in order to remain healthy. Otherwise, they can get root rot and die. So keep that in mind if you're going to be growing your native sages. And, maybe make sure they're at least like 10 feet away from an irrigated area. You can water them like, I don't know, maybe once a month during the summer to keep them looking good, but they do go dormant in the summer. So just keep that in mind. Our rosemary, our oregano, our thyme, and our lavender do not. But this is going to be the time, sort of like late winter, early spring, when they are growing most actively, or even winter and spring, I would say, in general, is the time in which our Mediterranean herbs grow the most actively. So this is our lavender right here, and this is planted around our fruit trees. Lavender is also very easy to grow, grows very rapidly, can thrive in situations where there's very little water. I mean, this is getting even less irrigation than the rosemary probably. So really, really easy to grow. You can cut these back very hard as well. In general, Mediterranean herbs, it seems you can cut them back very hard every year or two. And this is what we did with lavender. And, pruning is really good for plants, even hard pruning in general. Just know, like, how much pruning your plant can handle. And this is especially the case with Mediterranean herbs. So we cut these guys back very, very hard. You can I just want to kind of give an example of how far we cut them back this year. Like, we cut that off this year, this whole thing. And you can already see, like, how vigorous the new growth is. Very, very vigorous. And, you can even use our Mediterranean climate herbs as a green manure if you want, as a cool season green manure, I suppose, as opposed to the warm season green manures that we grow that are from the tropics. So if you need green manure over the winter, plants like lavender actually may be a good option. Another good one for that would probably be our native California bush sunflower, Encelica californica, which also has medicinal properties. But yeah, so this is lavender. Again, very easy to grow. Will take some irrigation in the summer, but don't give it too much. It's funny because my partner and I actually grew this little lavender plant in a pot, and we think it may have been overwatered and it died. So just keep that in mind. In general, your Mediterranean herbs are going to be sensitive to overwatering. So just bear that in mind. Anyways, I want to talk about some of our Mediterranean crops. I was going to put them in here, but it looks like something got to them, and I had to get rid of them. But collard greens. Collard greens are also a Mediterranean crop. As some of you may know, they are popular in like southern and black cuisine, but they're actually also very popular in Cypriot cuisine, as in Cyprus, because I'm from Cyprus, as I mentioned. So we will typically eat collard greens with fava beans. So fava beans, another very popular Mediterranean crop, very easy to grow. Those will probably be finishing up right around now, like March, April, if you planted fava beans in the winter. Fava beans will thrive in horrible soil. So if you're interested in growing some cool season Mediterranean legumes, fava beans are a great bet. Lentils as well. So yeah, And what else do we like to grow in our family that we're going to be planting now? So in my family, we have actually an heirloom variety of squash from Cyprus called Nerocolochithia. Yeah, Nerocolochithia, which roughly translates to water squash because this thing loves water, even though it's a Mediterranean climate plant. And the way that we typically plant is we'll dig like these large like berms, these big basins for it that like almost the size that you dig for like a decent sized shrub, and then we'd plant it in there and just let it run along the ground. Grows very similar to butternut squash. A lot of our squashes were bred in the Mediterranean, even though squashes are a New World plant. I wouldn't want to say New World, but like, you know, they're from the Americas, as we would call it now. So the squash plants came from like what we now call North America, Central America, etc. But you know, when these plants were brought over to Europe, there was a lot of diversification that occurred in the Mediterranean basin, because a lot of Mediterranean cultures began growing these plants, and so we have our own like heirloom varieties and stuff. And those are pretty easy to grow as well, a bit more demanding in terms of fertility. So make sure you're cycling your nutrients really well. Add supplemental fertilizer if you need to. But that's another great one. Then of course, you know, if you like Italian cuisine and also Greek and Cypriot cuisine, we are planting our tomatoes right now. So we've got some cherry tomatoes, some Roma tomatoes. Roma tomatoes are very easy to grow. I find that they do quite well here. And just keep in mind that like your Roma tomatoes are going to be a determinate tomato, which means they grow into a bush type habit and grow into like a bush, sort of like they have like a bush type growing habit, and they will produce most of their fruits within the span of a couple weeks. So be prepared to be inundated with tomatoes if you're growing like Roma tomatoes. But other than that, you know, tomatoes are always a good bet. Very easy to grow here. They can even tolerate our native soil quite well. Tomatoes can tolerate like lower quality soils. It's just, you know, you need to make sure that on top of that they're getting enough fertility, and they do appreciate like organic matter amendments and so forth. So yeah, that's a bit about tomatoes. What else? So we do grow a lot of mint as well in my family. Mint is a big one. I believe mint is actually native to the Mediterranean. So again, this is another Mediterranean climate herb, and mint would be native to some of the moister areas in the Mediterranean. And we do have a native mint here that we're actually going to be planting in the new fruit tree area, which is known as Yerba Buena. The botanical name is Clinopodium douglasii. So we will be planting that native mint. But here is a sweet mint right here. And sweet mint is one of the most common mints that is grown in Greek culture, from what I understand. So us Greeks, we love our sweet mint. Very, very easy to grow. This mat is like 5 years old now. We actually need to give it a little haircut. But wonderful, wonderful aroma. We love to use it in teas. We love to use it in like jams. We love our lamb with mint jelly. So easy to grow. Just, I would say when it comes to your mint, give it its own space because it can be very invasive. Or if you are going to plant mint in the ground, make sure that you have like barrier plants so it doesn't spread to another area. If you want to kind of like contain mint, a plant I could recommend that might help with that is this grass called vetiver grass. And you could probably get cuttings like on Etsy. I might be introducing some vetiver grass to the wellness garden this year because it also has medicinal uses and is an ingredient in many cosmetics. Yeah, just make sure to keep your mint contained, and that's why we kind of have it in this raised bed right here. These are all mint beds. This is a peppermint and chocolate mint in here, I'm not sure which, honestly. They're very similar. But you can see that that one's coming back right here, and it kind of went dormant. It got a bit knocked out by the heat this summer. It got pretty hot. So we're just, you know, taking the time that we have right now to grow some vegetables in this space, especially the peas. We've been trying to focus on the peas because they fix nitrogen into the soil, so we're going to be able to get like this good, nice green biomass back into the soil to feed the mint. But yeah, like I would say peas also would be considered a Mediterranean crop. I mean, a lot of things are. Like, you know, there's also a variety of Cypriot cabbage that I was given by a chef of a high-end restaurant in Beverly Hills, a high-end Greek Cypriot restaurant, who I know. I'm growing that in my aquaponics system at home. So we do love our brassicas. And, you know, sort of like a Cypriot tradition in my family is going up into the hills and harvesting the wild black mustard and making it into what we call horta, which is just like twice boiled mustard greens or any twice boiled wild greens Us Cypriots love our wild greens. I haven't had a chance to go forage for any this year yet, but we do love our brassicas. We don't eat much broccoli. I think that's more of like an Italian thing, but we do love like our cabbages and whatnot. So, yep, a lot of our common garden vegetables are actually from the Mediterranean, believe it or not. This was a huge agricultural region in ancient times, pretty much from ancient times to modern times. And so a lot of different crops have been bred in the Mediterranean region of the world. But I think we can move on to the last one that I wanted to talk about. And we're going to be demonstrating how to plant this one today. I'm very excited. So basil. We have many different varieties of basil that we're going to be planting today. And the interesting thing about basil is that it's not native to the Mediterranean. Basil is native to Africa, around the Ethiopian highlands, I believe. But this plant was brought to the Mediterranean, and I guess a lot of different Mediterranean cultures really like basil, especially Italians. We have, of course, our Genovese basil right here, and there are also some Greek basil. These are kind of like our Mediterranean varieties that we'll be planting. So Fino Verde sounds like an Italian variety. We'll be trying a bunch of different ones, and of course we've got our Thai basil right here. A couple perennial basils. So green basil, I believe that's a perennial. And this is cinnamon basil. I've been wanting to grow this one. And then we'll be getting African blue basil. So there are many different cultures around the world that use basil. So it's an awesome plant to grow. And we're getting around the time to plant our basil. So let's plant basil today. And we'll talk about how to do that. I'm going to get the tripod set up right here. We'll demonstrate that. You guys know the drill now in terms of what we do for our seed mixes. So pretty self-explanatory. I'll go through it instead for any... I'll go through it anyways for those of you who are new, like how we start seeds in the wellness garden. We actually use hydroponics to do it, as many of you have seen, I'm sure. And hydroponics is a great sort of low-effort method to start seeds. I just want to get this phone in the shade right here so that we don't have any issues with it overheating, because that can happen. Trying to find a good spot right here. All right. On the table it is now. It is starting to get warm again, and I've already had my phone overheat a couple times this spring, so I don't want it to happen in the middle of a live stream and have it cancel on us, because that has happened before. Okay. Right here is going to have to do. All right, so let's mix up our seed starting mix. You do not have to buy seed starting mixes. You can make them. It's very easy. So here we have coconut coir. You can buy blocks of these that expand from to 11 gallons in size or something crazy like that. And so I'm just going to wet this material. We're going to be planting 4 trays of basil today. I think I'm going to need a little bit more of the coconut coir. But once it's moist, it retains water very well. It's crumbly, and this stuff is much the production of coconut coir is much better for the environment than the production of peat moss. I do not like to use peat moss for that reason. Peat moss is a non-renewable resource, and its harvesting contributes to the destruction of peat bog ecosystems, which store massive amounts of carbon. So they're like a buffer to climate change. So try to avoid using peat moss. We do our best to be ecologically conscious here in the Wellness Garden, not only with our planting techniques and our plant selections, but in terms of what inputs we actually bring in that we do use. This is one of the reasons why we stick to regenerative techniques here. We minimize the use of fertilizers in general, because even if you have organic fertilizers, a lot of the times their production is the result of certain industries that are not the best for the environment. Industrial animal agriculture, for example, when we're talking about blood meal, bone meal, various kinds of manure and whatnot. Even if these things are organic, doesn't mean they're good. So we try and be conscious of environmental issues here as best as we can to design and operate an ecological landscape. All right, so yeah, that's basically the drill with this coconut coir fiber is we're going to want to moisten it and let it moisten for a bit. We want to allow the water to seep in so that seep into the fibers so that they become friable, much like soil. basically, the intent of this this material is going to mimic the structure of soil, and we'll make this material even more soil-like by adding vermiculite later on. But at the moment, I would probably want to add a little bit more. I just want to allow this mixture to soak. Add a bit more, yeah. And additionally, I'm going to add some seaweed extract, which is going to be a weak organic fertilizer and a root growth stimulant. I definitely believe in using seaweed for fertilizer, provided that it's sustainably harvested. And in fact, I'm probably going to end up foraging for seaweed on the beach relatively soon to make into fertilizer myself, because it's a fantastic material to use in fertilizers. Fantastic feedstock for fertilizers. Okay, I'm going to get the seaweed extract and then allow this to soak for a little bit. We'll revisit this, and then I'm going to need to start making labels for the basil plants. Seaweed extract. So seaweed extract is a good source of potassium, which will promote root growth. And it also contains these compounds called cytokinins, which are natural root growth promoters for plants. So we are just going to add in a little splash, basically. And I'm going to allow that to soak in. Just let it soak in. This is already starting to become nice and broken up. By the time we're done making all of the labels for the seeds, for the seedlings, then we're going to be ready. We'll do 2 of each variety of basil for now. I want to get some diversity going here. We just need to like make sure we understand which varieties are annual and which varieties are perennial, because that's the thing with basil. You know, technically most varieties of basil can grow as perennials. Like I just want to give an example of this one right here that's like at least 3 years old. So this is, I believe, a Genovese basil that is at least 3 years old. And this thing is just hung on through several winters. And through like disease outbreaks and not being watered enough, this thing is just like is just a survivor. But as you can see, when you have many kinds of basil, after they get like past a year old, they don't really become productive anymore, and it's just kind of like in a good, nice, warm spot where it can survive the cooler winter temperatures just really well. Because that's the thing about basil, because basil is actually a tropical plant. It is not a Mediterranean climate plant. It does not do well with the cold at all. And so unless you're in like the deep tropics, in the tropics, it's typically grown as an annual. So it's even mostly grown as an annual in our mild Mediterranean climate here, where we rarely get freezing temperatures. It just does not handle cold temperatures well at all. But I'm going to go through all the varieties of basil that we're going to be growing this year. I would say now's a good time to plant them. If you haven't planted them indoors, it's always good to start your seeds indoors, get a bit of a head start on the warm season. But yeah, we got a couple of these basils that are perennial. We'd like to have like some bona fide perennial basils here that we know can survive our winters, because there are some. The only one that we're missing is African blue basil, and I'm going to be eating some cuttings of African blue basil for my friends over at So Collective. You should check out So Collective. They are awesome. Yeah. So first, of course, Italian Genovese. This is a staple of your Mediterranean garden. I'm just going to label it. And then the dates. Date is 3/9. I remembered it. Cool. So, Genovese basil, Greek basil, miniature plant. Interesting. I'm definitely going to want to grow some of this at home too. Because we are Greek, and I'm sure my papu will appreciate this. Both of my papus. Lemon basil. I love lemon basil. It's delicious. All basils are pretty easy to grow. Just be wary of certain diseases, such as downy mildew. Soil health is key in preventing diseases. Always, always. Emerald, basil. I'm assuming, yeah, Everleaf means a deep. So this is called Everleaf Emerald Towers, a tower of deep green, fragrant basil that doesn't flower until late in the season, providing a long harvest, densely packed with leaves. Wonderful. That sounds great. I'm down to grow that for sure. Fino Verde. All right. This looks like a container variety. Fine green, I guess that means. Small dark green leaves with delicious flavor and aroma. Decorative compact makes a beautiful edging or container plant. Oh, that's a good idea. Good edging. Yeah, I might want to plant more of this because it sounds like it'll occupy like a lower stratum within a vegetable companion planting system. So that's pretty cool. And that's the thing. We're going to be planting a lot of these basils with tomatoes because tomatoes and basil, even though they're indigenous to opposite sides of the world, apparently they make good companion plants. And that's what people like to say, that basil enhances the flavor of tomatoes. And of course, basil is also a fantastic insectivore plant. It's going to attract a ton of bees, which are then going to go on to pollinate the tomatoes. So planting basil next to your tomatoes can absolutely, in my opinion, help, at the very least, increase your tomato yields and help keep pests off of your tomatoes. So Thai basil. I love Thai basil as well. And we did grow the cardinal basil last year. The cardinal one's pretty cool. Very, very ornamental. Love you guys, So Collective. So cardinal basil. And we have a couple interesting varieties that we're going to want to try this year. We got these from this company called Companion Plants Inc. And they sell all kinds of crazy stuff that I can't seem to find anywhere else, like galangal and whatnot. Like, good luck finding that anywhere else except for Etsy. I mean, I'm sure you can, but, like, I like my hard-to-find plants. I love trying things, of course. In fact, I actually asked the folks here at the Magrum Center to order some cassava cuttings for me because I want to plant cassava here, and we'll see how that goes. That's a whole other deal. But for now, we're just going to do the basil. Marihani basil, and this one's an annual. It'll have information about this on the Strictly Medicinal website. I get seeds from Strictly Medicinal as well. I have a lot of vendors that I like personally. I'm not going to promote a certain vendor over another. Whatever vendor you find has what you want. But and I'm definitely going to want to plant more basil because I'm going to want to do an entire aquaponic tower of basil, a hydroponic tower of basil. Sorry, and that's right. We're going to be getting We're going to be getting 3 8-tower systems for the new area. So I'm really excited to get more hydroponic production capacity. That's going to be awesome, and we're going to be running those towers off of organic nutrients as well. And I like using organic nutrients in hydroponics. I find that it works, that it produces a better quality crop than using synthetic nutrients. And so, yeah, basil does do very well in hydroponics, by the way. Fantastic crop for hydroponics. And this is cinnamon basil. Really excited for this one. And then green basil. This one is perennial, I believe. And then there's green pepper basil. I'm just going to put green pea basil. Letter P. Only so much space on these popsicle sticks. And I love using my popsicle sticks for seed starting labels because after I'm done with them, I'll just chuck them under the fig tree, and they're mulch. They're going to feed the soil. You know, like, don't buy plastic seed labels. Like, you're just going to end up creating more waste. There's no point. Oh, that's another cinnamon basil. Did I do cinnamon basil? Yeah, I did. So we can actually do more basil. Fantastic. There were a couple others that I was looking at, because we have a ton of different varieties, and, you know, I'm just like, I want to try a bunch of stuff. Already did Genovese, already did Thai, sweet lettuce leaf. I'm thinking of holding off on the Tulsi. No Tulsi yet, but these are actually seeds that we saved. I love growing Tulsi. And in my opinion, Tulsi smells like bubblegum. And of course, this is not a Mediterranean variety. Tulsi hails from India, but fantastic variety of basil to grow, nonetheless. Let's do the lettuce leaf. We have not done any lettuce leaf yet. So, and lettuce leaf is, again, another one of those staple varieties. We're making a lot of pesto, a lot of soups and whatnot with this basil. It's going to be delicious. Nah, it's like, I wish we had more space to germinate seeds. We do not have enough space. Well, there's all of our labels. So labels are done. And we're going to get to actually planting now. I want to check on our coconut coir mixture right here. Looks like it's soaked nice and well. I'll move my phone to the sun briefly. I think that'll be okay. All right, let's feel this stuff. Oh yeah, much better. You can see this is kind of like the texture. It's a wonderful material, and you know, it's equivalent to peat moss. So don't use peat moss, use this stuff. If you're going to like buy the material for your seed starting mixtures. I mean, since we have to make these mixtures, we can't do something like soil blocks because you can't do that in hydro. I would love to do soil blocks in hydro, but it just doesn't work. But soil blocks are the best option. That will save you plastic and on amendments. I think we need a bit more. And then I'm going to start adding the vermiculite. And vermiculite is to improve structure and increase drainage. And you can use vermiculite or perlite. Some people use pumice. But for this, I like vermiculite because the particle size is smaller than perlite. You know, perlite's kind of tough because of the particle size. You can see some of the stuff is fibrous. I mean, this is coconut husk fiber. And, you know, of course, that means it's renewable. And you can grow coconuts very sustainably in agroforestry systems. So, you know, and that's the future of like, coconut farming and whatnot is agroforestry. So, you know, like, I don't feel too bad about using this stuff. All right, let's get some vermiculite. So we're shooting for about a 50-50 mixture here. And here's your vermiculite. You can see it's this sort of like expanded rock material. It's an expanded mineral. I think it's used in insulation too. And it's also not as dusty as perlite, which is nice. Perlite is very, very dusty. You do not want to be inhaling perlite, and vermiculite's a bit safer to work with than perlite. We don't want to be getting ourselves sick while we're gardening, so just mix this up. I'm going to get like a visual on the ratio. I can smell the seaweed extract. Yeah, I think we can use a bit more vermiculite, but it's starting to look good. It's important to have that vermiculite because it's also going to ensure that the material doesn't get too soggy. We don't want our seed starting mix to be soggy, and that can be an issue in hydroponics because in hydroponics you water regularly from the bottom, and that can create, especially towards the bottom of the seed starting trays, a situation where you have too much moisture, and that can lead to issues with root rot, and you don't want that. This is looking pretty good, and that should definitely fill 4 trays. And we'll save this stuff for later. Looking great. That's perfect, actually. Like, this is kind of the texture I'm going for here. Like that. See that? Nice and crumbly. Very crumbly. Good structure. That's what we want. It's all about structure. And of course, you know, in your soil, it's the biology that structures it. But, you know, we're going to have to engineer in structure if we're starting seeds hydroponically. So I'm going to, once again, reposition the camera so you all can see. And again, we are doing 4 trays. Let's see what's a good position. And after this, we're going to end the live stream. I have a lot to do today, so I got to get back to it. But, you know, we'll show you guys how to plant basil. It's very easy. One of the easiest plants to start. Let's get this over here. All right. 4 trays. Would I love to do more? Absolutely. In fact, I kind of want to do 6. Let's do 6. Why not? I think we have enough mixture. I mean, the issue is, like, we're running out of space. That's all. I'm really glad that we're going to be installing a new nursery table, hopefully, when the new garden area goes up, because we really need more seedling production capacity. But, you know, yeah, these basil seedlings will be going here. They'll be going to lab school. We might offer some to the sustainability garden. So these basil seedlings are really going to get around. All right, let's begin. Reminder: do not get your seed packets wet. Avoid doing that at all costs. And when you're working with the seeds, make sure your hands are nice and dry. But for now, we're going to be getting wet. I'm just going to move this out of the way. All of our basil seeds. We have a lot of basil seeds here. You know, diversity is key, as I like to say. So plant a lot of different varieties, see what works best in your situation. That's kind of the intent here. You know, like, when it comes to, like, trying out different kinds of plants, try a lot of things. You know, there's something that'll work, you know. And that's kind of like the intent with, like, what I'm doing with the cover crops here too, is plant a lot of different things. Include a lot of different seeds in your cover crop. There are bound to be like 5 things at least that do really well. And, you know, especially with, like, the native cover crops. Like, yeah, like, even if you have, like, just a native wildflower seed mix that you get from Home Depot, whatever situation you plant it in, there are going to be at least 2 or 3 that are going to do well. So that's why diversity is great. You know, you're increasing your odds of success with diversity. And, you know, and of course, you know, learning is an iterative process. It's trial and error. So once you know what does work, you know, you'll be able to hone in on what that is next time. Yeah, this one is a bit messed up. We're not using that one. So yeah, you can see how nicely it fits into these 6-packs. This planting mix right here. I have used all kinds of different mixes for seed starting, and, you know, this is the one that I've settled on for hydroponics, aquaponics, which can be and will be transplanted into soil eventually. Just that 50-50 cocoa vermiculite mix, and if you want, you can add the seaweed extract. If you want, you can add some worm castings. If you want, you can add some rock dust like azomite. I'm sure probably if you want, you can even add like a little dash of whatever dry organic fertilizer you like to use. But, you know, we just keep it simple here because the hydroponic system already does fertilize the plants. And you don't have to have fertilizer in the hydroponic solution. You could just have it do straight water and include your fertilizer in the seed starting mix. It's kind of like whatever your preference is. And that's something we might start trying, actually, is doing things that way. It might be better to do things the other way around if we're going into soil. So that'll be an interesting little experiment, is, you know, incorporating whatever fertilizer we want to use into that. But since we use liquid fertilizers in hydro, that makes it convenient, you know. So at this point, we're going to stick to using the fish and kelp in the nutrient solution in the system's water. But yeah, so we'll do 3 plants of each variety. I think that's going to be pretty good. We'll have plenty of basil to go around. Because we're definitely going to be planting a lot of basil this year, both in one of our raised beds, because we're doing a tomato bed, and we definitely want to have tomato in there, so it's going to be tomato, basil, and sorghum Sudan grass. We're trying to do like a living trellis out of sorghum Sudan grass. And you guys remember the sorghum Sudan grass in the cover crop mix last year? That one grass that got to like 10 feet tall. And the thing is, when you cut that grass back, it actually produces a bunch of side shoots. So we're thinking it might be a good idea to get that side shoot production going in order to create like a stronger structure for the tomatoes. And then, of course, basil and tomatoes, like one of your sort of classic companion planting combinations. We'll plop it in there with the onions. I don't think we're going to do any legumes at this point in that bed. It's the big long bed where we currently have the cabbage and the Romanesco and the onions and the parsley. The parsley is just about ready for its first cut. And of course, we're doing our succession planting, our stratification, our harvest stacking, all those things that we use to increase the productivity and resilience of our beds here in the Wellness Garden. We haven't really done a video on polyculture design yet, and the reason for that is it's such a broad subject. I'd rather give that one in lecture format, and that's what that's one of the things that the Healthy Growers training is going to teach you. It's going to teach you it's going to teach you principles for designing proper companion planting systems that are actually functional and are not just like certain plant combinations or different plants thrown together. It's going to teach you combinations of plants, how to design combinations of plants that actually work together. So another reason to check out the Healthy Growers training, we're going to be offering that material in week 2. So remember, it's going to be available online. The sign-up sheet is still open, so make sure to sign up by 5 p.m. today. Navigate over to the flyer on our Instagram feed for the sign-up link. It is also posted up on our website, the Magrum Center website, so check out that. And we will be offering it again in the fall. This is not your only opportunity to take the training, so if you can't take it this time around, don't worry, we'll be offering it again in the fall. And remember, the online version is open to the general public. The in-person version is only open to CSUN students, and that is due to COVID protocols. And a lot of those spots in the in-person are actually already pre-filled by people from the Magrum Center who need to take the training. So if you want to attend in person and you're a CSUN student, I would recommend signing up right away because those spots are filling up fast. I haven't even checked it since last night, like the sign-up sheet, and people are still signing up. This is the last day, and just like having the experience with planning and coordinating events. I actually have some experience doing this in the music industry, in the live event production industry. The last day or two is before the deadline to buy our tickets or to sign up or whatever is the day where most people will sign up. So just make sure you get on that if you're interested. And if you can't attend all the sessions, no biggie. We'll work something out. Just make sure to be in communication with me. I'll be in communication with everybody who has signed up. So check out the training. We piloted the new version of it last fall. It was a huge success, and we're going to be doing the same curriculum this spring. All right, dirty wet hands. I need to wash these off. But I'll do that right now before I handle the seeds or the labels. Any questions? No questions so far. All right. All right, my hands are good enough. So we'll start by just popping the labels in here. I kind of like to do everything, all the seeds at once. And this is going to give me extra time for my hands to dry off a bit more. They're a little bit moist, but that's no big deal. Just make sure they're not really wet, and the drier the better. The less risk that you're going to be subjecting your seeds to that they're going to spoil. Because if seeds are exposed to moisture, they might start germinating, they might rot. all kinds of bad things can happen to soil if you expose them to moisture, to seeds if you expose them to moisture. So just don't do that. And in fact, when you have like a seed storage container like this, save the silica gel packets from like beef jerky, kale chips, whatever, and put them in there, and it'll help maintain a low humidity environment for your seeds. And that's a trick that I use. All right. So generally speaking, with basil, you're looking to sow it about a 1/4 inch depth. Man, these ones already got some like stuff on them. I'm gonna need to let these dry out. See, if you get a little drop of water in there, no big deal. Let it dry out in the sun after you're done. So I'm gonna do this one first then, and let it dry out in the sun. I assume 1/4 to 1/2 inch basil, and your germination time is gonna be about roughly 10 days, maybe 14 days. Just be patient. You have to be a little patient with basil. I'm just gonna make a little divot. I use a Sharpie. You can use anything. You can use your fingers. You can use a Sharpie. Just make a little divot in the center of these trays right here, like so. And the thing about growing basil is you also want to make sure you keep it pruned. I should probably take that 3-year-old one back pretty far, actually, now that it's spring. Yeah, those are good enough. Not too deep. Remember, your general rule of thumb when it comes to sowing seeds, except for ones that require light to germinate, which you want to press into the surface, is half the depth of the seed. Your depth wants to be twice the size of the seed, is how deep you want to plant them. So, that's what I would say. And we'll do the Greek basil first. And before we go, I also want to show you guys what the tot soy we planted looked like in the bok choy from last week. All right. I'm going to get my hands a little bit more dried off, and then we're going to plant. So I will show you guys what the Greek basil seeds in general look like. They look very much the same, all the basil seeds. These ones are actually kind of large for basil seeds. Here we are. Basil seeds. And so, what I like to do is sprinkle. Assume your germination rate is going to be around 60-70%. I like to sprinkle several in there, at least 5. Oh, I just put them in the wrong hole, didn't I? I'm tired. I'm not paying attention. Don't mind me. I'll just pop those in there. Whoops. I did not sleep well last night. It happens. But yeah, so we'll just, I'll just put some extra ones in here. Okay. So Greek basil. It's interesting because, we don't really use basil in my culture's cuisine. So I'm interested to grow this variety and see what it looks like. It might be, there might be folks from a certain region of Greece who do use basil, but generally, my family does not use it. So I'm really interested to, see what this variety is like. But I've grown the Genovese many, many times. And the Italian varieties, I have grown those so many times. They're fantastic. Very easy to grow. I've grown Thai, I've grown lemon, but a lot of these other ones, I've not grown a strictly perennial basil variety before. So I'm really interested to see how it grows. We have some spots for perennial basils as well, set aside in the wellness garden. And that's why I'm kind of like, herb spiral, because you want to do perennial plants in an herb spiral. If you have never heard of an herb spiral garden, it's kind of like a permaculture thing. Check it out. And it'll be a great place to grow a lot of our culinary herbs, so we can dedicate more space to our medicinal herbs that we're using for teas, and just for vegetables in general. All right, Genovese is done. And of course, just cover these guys up, like so. Give it some time, and we'll probably pop these in like a little seedling greenhouse. There's a sweet lettuce leaf. Come to think of it, we do actually eat a lot of onions as well in my culture. My papu, that is grandfather in Greek, he loves to just, like with dinner, like he likes to get these Mexican onions and just like eat them, like straight up, as like a side vegetable. And I gotta say, like it's kind of good. Yep. So there's the large leaf. Let's do the lemon next. I've grown this variety called Lemon Miss Burns. I'm not sure how different it is from just like a regular lemon variety, but I like it. You know, it's pretty great. I've actually chopped it up finely and put it in salad dressings, like citrus flavored salad dressings. It does taste like lemon. It is very citrusy. Let's get these seeds in there. I'm interested. I've germinated basil seeds this way, but I'm interested to see what the packets say. Yeah, seed depth 1/4 inch. Seed spacing group of 2 seeds every 12 inches. So yeah, like your spacing for basil plants is generally going to be about 1 foot, unless you're growing a smaller variety. Like it kind of depends on the variety, but like basil can get decent size. Do not underestimate basil, especially if you have one of those perennial basils. Like I've seen perennial basils that are like 6 feet wide, 4 feet tall, kind of deal. Like the African blue basil, for example. We'll be getting some of that. I'm really excited for that. Thai basil next. And also, you can propagate basil vegetatively from cuttings. And that's the one session that we did not get to do, was the vegetative propagation session. I'm thinking we'll do that in April. Because we can because then we can vegetatively propagate our basil, and we can vegetatively propagate our mint, and like even our sages and our oregano and our thyme. Like a lot of these Mediterranean herbs are very easy to propagate vegetatively, which means taking clones of the plant, like taking cuttings. That's the wonderful thing about plants. You can make more of them for free. I mean, yeah, you could buy some pretty cool seeds, but save your seeds eventually. And I think basil, when it comes to seed saving, I think it cross-pollinates with itself pretty readily. So just keep that in mind. If you have multiple basil varieties growing in the same area, they're probably going to cross-pollinate. Oh, I see. This one has a secondary seed packet. So it looks like we're looking at very small seeds right here. So I might want to actually just put these about 1/8 of an inch down, like really on the surface. Usually that's what that tells me. So just be careful when you're opening these little packets. Make sure you open them enough to where you can get the extra seeds back in. But don't open them up like too much, because then they'll spill out. Well, these look like regular sized basil seeds. Yep. These are actually big. Look at them. Those are big. Chunky basil seeds. So yeah, we will do a bit deeper actually. That's fine. Not too deep. You do not want to go too deep. Because then you'll get issues with like diseases and improper germination, and you don't want that. But provided we don't get like a sudden cold snap, these will be up fairly soon. You know, we're headed into spring. It's right around the corner. We're getting some warm weather. So, great opportunity to start planting your basil, your tomatoes, your squashes. We're going to do the squashes next and all that stuff. That's even a bit more cold sensitive. Because we need to get a bunch of them over to lab school. I still need to do my sunchokes. I have not done those yet. I think I'm just going to plant them directly now. Huh. There we are. Next up we have green basil. And this, I believe, is one of those perennial varieties. And like doing this will help the seeds settle to the bottom so that when you open the packet, they're not like stuck to the top and spill out. All these little tips and tricks that you learn along the way when you're gardening. Oh yeah, this is clearly a different species. Look at that, than the other basils. They're like its own unique species. Interesting. So let's grow this. We'll see how it does. I'm going to plant it a little bit shallower. Because, you know, smaller seeds. You don't want to plant too deep. Alright, so there's that one. Then we're doing the cinnamon. I've not grown cinnamon basil, but I've smelled cinnamon basil. And let me tell you, it smells like cinnamon. It probably has like some of the same like terpenes in it or whatnot. The same volatiles. Some of these seeds are stuck to the top. Darn. That's okay. This one's resealable. I like the resealable seed packets. I don't like the ones that only open up once. And these ones are like normal size. This is probably just like the Opulum basilicum, which is like the main like species of basil that is grown. But there are tons of different species of basil, not just varieties. I think Thai basil is a different species, in fact, than like Italian basil. Don't quote me on that. Cardinal is next. And yeah, we did grow cardinal last year. It didn't flower like it was supposed to. I was growing it in the hydro towers, and we had something happen with the system, and then the system crashed. The plants died before it could, produce those beautiful flowers depicted on the seed packet. But we'll try again. If at first you don't succeed, try again. Alright. We still have some seeds of that left, which is cool. They didn't really include many seeds in this packet. Some of the packets don't have a lot of seeds, and that's why, it's good to save your seeds. Like, you can turn one seed into 1,000 seeds, into 10,000 seeds. Do it. Save your seeds. I mean, like, a lot of seed companies do fantastic work with, like, variety development and selection, but you don't need to be reliant on them. You don't need to be reliant on anybody except for yourself and the people you care about. So, save your seeds. And your community, of course. See, like, they're barely any in here. So, again, save your seeds. I might just do it so that I have, like, the basils flowering at different times. Did I do the green basil? Yes, I did. I don't know why I didn't do it. And so next is green pepper, which I believe is another perennial basil. And so we'll be doing 14 basil varieties this year. At least. Actually 15, because I'm going to get the African blue basil cuttings, and because there's 12 right here. I have this other one in here called Married Man Pork Basil. It's another perennial basil. And then, yeah, we'll be doing the Tulsi, then we'll be getting the African blue basil, and this is 12, so that'll make 15 varieties of basil. How cool is that? I'll have to need to find homes for all these. I mean, yeah, we'll find homes for all these. I'm not worried. But it's like that other bed over there, like where we're doing tomatoes, we can do like 8 varieties alone, so we'll be good. Another brown-seeded variety, because normally basil seeds are black. Interesting. Well, I'm excited to try these. Like, I always think it's better to grow perennial crops if you can, because they'll you'd only have to plant them once, and they will give you a harvest for a longer window. And their production gets better and better each year. So, like, I feel like, yeah, opt for perennial crops where you can. Like, we're even growing those perennial tomatoes with the moringa, that Matt's Wild cherry tomato that's now become a perennial. And yeah, it's gotten into some disease issues over the winter, but it's coming back. It's still growing, still producing. So, grow perennials. Probably pop some basils in with the moringa. And some pole beans. That would be cool. And then finally, the Fino Verde. So this is our little container variety. Man, we're going to have so many seeds. Like, we're doing 2 trainings here, not just the Healthy Growers training, but actually the Grow LA Victory Garden training too. So we're going to need to do a lot of work. I've been doing my best to create work for all the trainees, but like we already keep this garden so well maintained. Like there's not that much to do. But you know, that's the point of like kind of the point of me doing like redoing the fruit trees before the training starts. Not only so that it looks good, so it's not in progress while we're doing the trainings, but so that people actually have the opportunity who are attending the trainings to help us plant the fruit tree area. And help turn that area into a food forest. So, good stuff. All right, and we'll use that area to teach the transplanting lesson that we're going to be doing, because we will be doing activities, and there will be take-home activities prepared for online attendees as well. And we're just going to make all the take-home activities proof of completion due by a certain time. We don't expect you to do them in any order. Just, if you want to get the certificate to put on your resume, just do the activities and have them done by a certain time. That's all we ask. So, yeah, basil's done. Check it out. We're going to pop those in the nursery table really quick. I'll show you what else is going on in the nursery table right now, real fast. I'm running it just to make sure we don't have any mechanical issues with it. But check it out, tatsoi. There we go. 1 week, it's coming up. We're going to be thinning in a couple days, probably. Yeah, I'd say 4 days to a week. Maybe on Monday we'll take a look at them and see if we need to thin. So yeah, there's our tatsoi. Real exciting. All right. So we're going to wrap it up. I will see you guys next week. I would like to talk about planting bananas next week. I think I want to do it here. But this soil may need more work before we plant bananas here. I don't know. Like, we're going to need to probably do some amending. I might want to get my hands on like some chicken manure because bananas, they're heavy feeders, let's be honest. And you're going to want to give them that initial burst of fertility, even if you're already growing all of this green manure right here, which is what we're doing. This is what that is, by the way. I think I've described this a bit in previous live streams. But of course, we have our comfrey. We have our native bunch grasses, so our California brome. We have some annual green manures like flax, some annual wildflowers, mostly native wildflowers here. Phacelia, lupine. Lupine's a great green manure. Gets nice and big, fixes nitrogen, and then our perennial green manures, of course. We have our New Zealand white clover and our yarrow. That's kind of like coming up in here. You can see it. New Zealand white clover, yarrow. And that's the point. Like, the annuals are going to sort of establish the system, and then the perennials are going to take over, and the annuals are going to self-seed and come up pretty much wherever they please. And hopefully we'll be able to get this to work in synergy with the bananas. So yeah. Love to do bananas here. That's kind of the plan for next week. You can see the fig trees are leafing out. This one is coming out real nice, but this one's sort of taking its time. No worries. We gave them a hard pruning this year. Of course, all of those prunings, that we didn't take cuttings of, have gone underneath the fig trees to feed back the soil. And we're building soil here, folks. So, yeah. Thank you for joining us this week, talking about Mediterranean herbs. Hopefully we can do bananas next week. I'm really excited for that. I actually got into gardening by growing bananas, so very near and dear to my heart. And I'm thinking I'll just bring one of my blue Java pups from home, because I have a couple pups I can contribute, or like a couple corms, and we'll plant that. We'll demonstrate how to do that, and how to just like go over some general care tips for bananas, because they are easy to grow if you take care of them properly. That's the thing. But yeah, anyways, thank you for joining this week. A reminder to sign up for the Healthy Growers training if you are interested. Again, navigate over to our Instagram feed and look for that flyer. There's a bit link in there. It's bit.ly/HGT Spring 2022, capital HGT, capital S on the spring, and then 2022. That should be the link. So go ahead and find that if you're interested in signing up. We still have in-person and online spots available, and that is a free 4-week course in organic vegetable gardening that you will get a certificate for at the end. We are offering that every semester, once per semester. Additionally, if you have further questions, feel free to use the Ask a Master Gardener feature on our website. So any questions about your garden, we're happy to help. So thank you again. See you next week. We're going to be talking about bananas. Have a good one.